TurtleWoW is the most ambitious and lovingly crafted Vanilla Plus project out there right now. It's got new quests, it's got new zones, it's got new races, and a whole lot of heart. It's the version of Classic we wish we had back in the day. But when it comes to PvP, the shell of TurtleWoW begins to show its cracks. What kind of PvP issues are we facing on TurtleWoW? Well, low engagement in PvP overall, overgeared players dominating in the PvP scene. They've had 6 years to acquire their gear, long queue times as a result of low player engagement, and bursty damage metas are just the beginning of some of the PvP issues we're facing on TurtleWoW. Which is why today, I wanted to discuss with the community and present 3 ideas that I think could fix or improve the PvP scene on TurtleWoW overall. Idea number 1. Smaller battleground sizes. Instead of Arathi Basin taking 20 people to begin a match, instead of Warsong Gulch taking 10 people to fill a match, why not reduce these requirements by half? You could do this for all of the battlegrounds, and if they required less players to fill a match, it would allow PvP matches to start more frequently, increasing the availability for your players. The faster and more fluid it is to enter PvP matches, the more likely it is that players will continually participate in, and that participation will steadily increase as availability is quickened. Additionally, if you reduce the number of players required to begin a battleground by half, you essentially raise the player's impact on that battleground. If you're hitting an objective, it becomes much more important. If you're strategizing and spreading out your troops on that battlefield or that battleground, it's going to become much more important who you position and why you're positioning them there. It's going to make each individual's contribution so much more important. Of course, for this plan to work, removal of AFK players would need to be incredibly fast, and some additional implementations would be needed, which we'll cover later in this video, to combat gear discrepancies or entering of enemy premades being an uphill battle, which would nearly guarantee a loss, but we'll cover that as we tackle more of these issues. Overall, I think reducing the number of players required to enter a battleground is one of the easiest and most accessible ways that we could quickly improve the PvP situation on TurtleWoW. Many times, the queue times take a long time for players to even enter to begin with, and then the player numbers are already, many Arathi Basins or many matches that I go to, they're usually around half full anyways. So these matches are already kind of playing out like that. So if you organically reduce the number of players that were required to enter a match, you would just naturally speed up the queue times, as they wouldn't be looking for that many players. They would hit a half cap and then start creating a new match. You'd have more matches overall. On top of those positive changes, reducing the number of players required also combats some of the power creep that's been onset in TurtleWoW. Many players who fight multiple enemies at the same time will testify that it is far too quick. The time of death is far too quick for you to make any meaningful and adaptive changes. Many players are dying in 2 hits from just one character, so imagine fighting multiple at the same time. It would greatly increase individual contributions overall, and additionally, on top of all of these positive changes, smaller battlegrounds would increase digestible viewership. What do I mean by that? The less players, the less pieces that are moving in that battlefield, the easier it is for viewers and people who are learning about TurtleWoW or checking TurtleWoW's PvP out. The easier it is for them to understand the dynamic and what's happening on the battlefield. I think these changes overall would drive growth and improve the PvP community. Idea number 2 for improving the PvP situation. This is making better PvP rewards. I think rewards should be purchasable using honor points as currency rather than locking all of the rewards behind rank 14 or rank 13, all the good rewards. It's no secret that even much of the tier 2 gear is better than rank 14 PvP gear, and PvP gear is obtainable in a much shorter amount of time, which I think discourages PvP overall. If gear was obtainable in small pieces via PvP outside of the ranking system, and you could just use the ranking system to maybe allow different colors of gear to indicate your rank, or maybe to include titles. I think if gear was easier to obtain in segments, it would overall drive participation, right? People would actually have a reason to play that PvP. You wouldn't have to grind for 3 months before you got something of value. If you used honor points as currency, every game would matter more in the immediate term. Instead of taking months to achieve your rank, just to finally start buying items that are decent, save all your points and buy items in small phases, making every game feel much more respectful of a player's time and more rewarding of your effort, which would encourage overall more participation. Honor point currency would allow better reward structures where players could aim for smaller goals. For example, just trying to earn like 1500 honor points to buy maybe boots or pants, or something similar where they can enjoy PvP at a more casual pace, similar to what implementations TurtleWoW has already made, where you don't lose your rank, except in this case, there's more of a reason to participate sooner as fresh 60s. There's light at the end of the tunnel much faster. Honor point currency is just better. I think the system fits incredibly well with TurtleWoW's ethos, and it's incredibly player friendly. It's incredibly alt friendly, which encourages more participation on different characters. It would allow the TurtleWoW team to add additional fun PvP rewards if they chose to open that door for maybe vanity or cosmetic options, tabards, or even more consumables that might be usable outside of those PvP environments. I think this change would add nuance and greatly improve the PvP environment. Additionally, I think the PvP rewards just are not good enough when compared to a lot of the PvE rewards. Like we said before, rank 14 PvP gear, rank 13 PvP gear, which takes you months of commitment, months of time, which is, you're essentially AFK grinding some of these times. You know, you're tuned out, you're zoned out, you're just grinding the BG to get the rank done so that you could finally get this gear, and the gear is just mediocre. It's just not great. You're better off committing to and getting tier 2 gear like we said. It's just almost exactly on par with your tier 2 Blackwing layer gear, which some people can get in as short as a week. Especially because most guilds have already cleared through this content, joining and getting that gear is easier than ever. So I think if we were to make the PvP reward structure better, we should also make the PvP rewards better. I think that the PvP gear should maybe be easier to obtain and have upgrades that you can slowly add to it, or just better options overall that maybe cost more honor. Just better rewards need to be added, I think. That would incentivize more participation overall. But let me know what you think. And finally, idea number 3. And this is a gear score based queue with an inventory locking system so that it cannot be cheated by players. Now, one of the biggest reasons when I ask players why they do not want to participate in PvP or why they've been avoiding it overall is that they've gone into a PvP match and they've played against players who are in full tier 3. Maybe they're not in a raiding guild. Maybe they don't have the time, or they work full time to commit to a raiding guild, and PvP was their only community. They do not feel like participating in the matches and getting absolutely steamrolled by people who already have Thunder Furies and are bringing Thunder Furies on rogues and alt characters who usually shouldn't have them, but because the server's been alive for 6 years, they do. They don't want to participate against that. So I think if you were to implement any changes like the previously mentioned changes in this video, one of the most important things you could do to help work in coordination with those changes is to lock the player's inventory and have the system queue based on gear type. You could have it recognize what tier of gear they're wearing as a simple way to do this, or have items in a table, in a bracketed table on the back end where certain items were in a certain bracket that would categorize them as either maybe like a tier 1 bracket, a tier 2 bracket, a tier 3 bracket, or maybe even just a dungeon gear bracket. Now, as mentioned previously in this video, PvP participation overall is a little bit lower on TurtleWoW. So if we were to split players up by the gear that they're wearing, we run the risk of maybe not filling matches as easily, right? Well, I think that PvP participation would rise as players finally had the opportunity to enter these spaces without having to get, tier 2 or better gear just to feel like they're making a difference in PvP. I think players would come and play these matches, and additionally on top of that, I think it would create an interesting and nuanced experience. You know, you'd have lower gear score brackets where you could learn the basics and fundamentals of your class, especially if you're playing an alt. You know, you could maybe equip some dungeon gear to have some slower paced PvP. And then as you got better, you could equip some of your high-end gear and go participate in the high-end PvP where things are fast and a little less forgiving as players do more damage. I think it would create really fun nuances to experience in the PvP scene. Currently in PvP, gear is more important than skill, and I think this would reward people who have time availability more so than it rewards people who can play their class or their role well. So with a gear score based system, I think you'd shift into skill based combat, skill based gameplay, which not only would be more interesting to view from the outside, engagement from other communities who are excited to flock to TurtleWoW because it's more skill based. I think it would also encourage more participation overall. Players would be encouraged to use their cooldowns in a smart manner, their coordination and their tactics incredibly effectively on the battlefield. I think it'd just be better gameplay overall. Gear score queue matches would smooth out the PvE and PvP experience, as non-raiders would have a much easier time entering into the PvP community, which is one of the most sought after activities at level 60 once you achieve level 60. If you don't have a raiding community, you go to the PvP community. So opening and making it accessible right away to players without getting absolutely crushed and having a huge grind to access it and enter it, I think it would make the gameplay experience much better for fresh 60s and players coming to the server to enjoy that PvP. Now, there are some potential hesitations as well with the gear score queue. Of course, I think players who have already earned their gear or who have grinded out the grueling grind to rank 13 and 14 would be a little upset and feel a little invalidated. So we'd have to make sure that they still feel like they're rewarded for the time that they invested in. Maybe special titles, maybe special colors of gear. I don't know what the answer is. Whatever you guys think, let me know in the comments. That would keep them feeling incentivized and excited for the gear that they've already earned. I could also see players who are in tier 3 gear being very upset that they can no longer just easily steamroll people in matches. They would probably be the first ones to naysay this particular idea. I mean, who doesn't want to win, right? But overall, I think gear score will create more nuance, it'll create more excitement for the community, and more skill-based gameplay. Alright, well that concludes my top 3 ideas that I think TurtleWoW can implement to improve the PvP situation. And this is really an ongoing community discussion, right? I mean, the more ideas, the more we can add to this discussion as a team, as a community of people, the better the end result can be. So let me know what you think in the comments. Please share your ideas. Please work with me and other people in the community to create the best, the leading idea. Okay, I think these will help in the long term. With that being said, I want to thank you guys for all your support. I know that some of the uploads have been a little inconsistent. I've been having some health issues and I'm continuing to have some. Got some upcoming events in the future, but I will continue to try to maintain my update schedule. Thank you for subscribing to over 3,000 subscribers, to the consistent community members who give feedback. I greatly appreciate your support and all the support you give the TurtleWoW community. You are what make it great. So thank you for subscribing, thank you for liking, and we'll see you in the next video.